Hi, I'm Robert Reil. My background is in precision machinery, infrastructure, and business systems analysis. That work teaches you something simple. Small unseen variables can create large downstream failures. And that is exactly what happens when a business keeps correcting the visible mistake without realigning the system underneath it. Many organizations experience a frustrating pattern that keeps returning after everyone thought it was solved. A problem appears, the team fixes it, operations improve for a while, and leadership feels like the issue is under control. But months later, the same problem comes back, usually wearing a slightly different disguise. The core insight is simple: repeated operational mistakes are often not new mistakes at all. They are usually signs that the business system has drifted away from the structure that originally made the work reliable. When systems are first created, they often work well because the process is fresh, responsibilities are clear, and everyone understands the intended flow. The handoffs make sense, the steps are visible, and the team knows what must happen before work moves forward. But over time, small changes accumulate, and most of those changes do not announce themselves as risks. One employee adjusts a procedure, another skips a step, and a new task gets added informally because nobody wants to slow things down. No single change seems significant enough to stop the business and redesign the process. That is why business system drift is dangerous. It usually arrives as small adaptations that quietly change how the system functions. In sales, that may look like inconsistent follow up notes or deals moving forward without the same review standard. In operations, it may look like different people using different versions of the process because each person learned a workaround from somebody else. Processes naturally drift when they are not actively maintained because every living business creates pressure on its own procedures. Employees adapt to new situations, customer requests change, tools get updated, and new people learn the work from whatever version currently exists. Workarounds appear because people are trying to keep things moving, not because they are trying to damage the business. Shortcuts develop when the official process feels slower than the pressure of the day. Without periodic review, those shortcuts stop looking like exceptions and start becoming the normal way work gets done. Eventually, the original structure is lost, even though nobody made a formal decision to abandon it. Leaders often assume the issue is new because the visible symptom is happening now. But often the real cause is slow operational drift that has been building beneath the surface. If this kind of systems thinking is useful for you, this is probably a good time to subscribe because that's really what this channel is built about. The early signals of drift are usually small and easy to ignore. A step gets skipped, a note is missing, a deadline slips, or a person handles something outside the normal process. At first, these signals look like ordinary human variation, so the business treats them as small corrections instead of structural warnings. Then behavioral drift begins. People create workarounds, different team members develop different habits, and the official process becomes less important than the informal process people actually use. The system fracture happens when those informal habits start affecting visibility. Reports no longer reflect reality, managers cannot easily see where work is stuck, and the same process produces different outcomes depending on who touches it. By the time compound failure appears, forecasting weakens, decisions slow down, Customers feel the inconsistency, the revenue opportunities leak. Organizations that maintain stable systems do something different. They periodically review their processes before repeated mistakes become normal operating behavior. They examine how work actually flows, not just how the process was documented when it was first built. That distinction matters because a written process can look clean while the real process has already changed. Stable organizations compare current operations with intended procedures, looking for gaps between what should happen and what is actually happening. When drift appears, they realign the system instead of blaming the people first. Before realignment, the team keeps reacting to symptoms and calling each fix a solution. After realignment, the team can see where the system moved, why the mistake returned, and what must be stabilized. Opportunity mapping helps businesses understand how their systems have evolved because it looks at the current process objectively, instead of relying on memory or assumption. A leader may believe the business is still following the intended process, while the daily workflow has quietly shifted in several places. By examining the current process, leaders can see where drift has occurred, where handoffs changed, and where informal behavior replaced designed structure. Once drift becomes visible, the business has a better decision path. It can decide what should stay, what should be removed, what should be redesigned, and what needs automation only after the process is stable enough to automate. Operational mistakes rarely repeat by accident. They often return because the system has quietly drifted away from its original design. Stability requires periodic visibility because invisible drift cannot be corrected with surface level fixes. When systems remain visible, they remain reliable. And when they remain reliable, the business can improve by design instead of repeatedly recovering by reaction. Let me say that again. By design instead of repeatedly recovering by reaction. That is the operating difference between reaction and control. That is the operating difference between reaction and control. You do not scale by hoping the same mistake stays fixed. You scale by keeping the system visible enough to stay aligned. If you want more system-first business growth guidance, subscribe and keep building the business by design, not by chance.